The last transmission. The morning sun of Kepler 442b cast strange purple shadows across the mining settlement. 3 different alien species worked side by side in the dusty streets, their forms moving with practiced ease around the human-built structures. This was New Haven Colony, humanity's farthest outpost in the galaxy. Zara, a crystalline Zephyrian, stood at her workstation sorting mineral samples. Her transparent body caught the alien sunlight and scattered it in rainbow patterns across her desk. She had lived here for 12 years, ever since humans found her people drifting in damaged ships after their homeworld died. The humans gave them a place to rebuild their lives. Near the main communications tower, Thek clicked his mandibles in concentration. The insectoid Thurok engineer was always fixing something. His 6 arms moved in perfect coordination as he adjusted the quantum relay array. His people were the best builders in this part of the galaxy. But they had no weapons when the raiders came for their colonies. Humans fought off the attackers and offered the survivors a home. In the medical center, Dr. Senna placed her pale blue hands on a human child's forehead. The Malari healer's empathic abilities let her feel the boy's pain and draw it away. Her species had been enslaved for their healing gifts until human marines broke their chains. Now she used her powers freely, helping anyone who needed care. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the colony's central hub. The graying human watched the 3 species work together with quiet pride. New Haven wasn't just a mining operation, it was proof that different peoples could build something beautiful together. His peaceful morning ended when the proximity alarms began screaming. "Commander," Lieutenant Torres called from the communication station. "We have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace. Big ones." Morrison ran to the command center. The main screen showed dozens of massive ships appearing in the system. Their dark hulls bore the red claw symbol of the hegemony, the most feared empire in this part of the galaxy. "How many ships?" Morrison asked. 47 capital ships, sir, plus fighter escorts. They're moving into attack formation." Morrison's blood went cold. New Haven had defensive weapons, but nothing that could stop a full hegemony battle fleet. He opened the colony-wide communication system. "This is Commander Morrison. All residents report to emergency shelters immediately. This is not a drill." The alien workers dropped their tools and moved quickly but calmly to the reinforced bunkers. They had practiced this many times, hoping they would never need it. Minutes later, a signal came from the hegemony fleet. The main screen flickered and showed a massive reptilian face. Admiral Krex's yellow eyes held no warmth or mercy. Bone ridges jutted from his skull, and his mouth revealed rows of sharp teeth when he spoke. "Human colony, you will surrender immediately. Your alien pets will be processed for slave labor. Resistance is futile." Morrison stepped forward. "This is Commander Jake Morrison of New Haven Colony. These people are under the protection of Earth. Withdraw your forces." Admiral Krex made a sound like grinding glass. It might have been laughter. "Earth? Your pathetic world is 47 light-years away. No help will come. You have 72 hours to surrender, or we will burn your colony from orbit." The transmission ended. Morrison stared at the black screen for a long moment. 72 hours. Even if Earth launched a rescue fleet immediately, it would take months to reach them using normal space travel. He turned to his communication officer. "Open an emergency channel to Earth. Maximum power." "Sir, it will take over 47 years for the signal to reach Earth using normal communication. Use the quantum relay. I don't care if it burns out every transmitter we have." The quantum communication system was experimental and unreliable at such distances. But it was their only chance to send a message that might reach Earth in hours instead of decades. Morrison stood before the transmitter. Around him, his human crew worked frantically to boost the signal. In the settlement below, 3 different alien species huddled in shelters, trusting that somehow the humans would find a way to save them. "This is Commander Jake Morrison, New Haven Colony, Kepler 442b system," he began. His voice was steady despite the fear in his heart. "We are under attack by a hegemony battle fleet. 47 ships. They have given us 72 hours to surrender before orbital bombardment begins." He paused, looking out the window at the aliens who had become his friends and neighbors. Zara was helping organize supplies in the shelter. Thek was reinforcing the bunker walls with his engineering skills. Dr. Senna moved between families using her empathic powers to calm frightened children. "We have over 3,000 alien refugees here, good people who trusted us to keep them safe. They're counting on us now." We'll hold as long as we can, but we're facing impossible odds. Morrison took a deep breath. He thought of his wife Sarah back on Earth. His daughter Emma was starting college. He might never see them again. To our families back home, we want you to know we tried. We won't abandon these people. If this is our last transmission, tell our loved ones we died protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. That has to mean something. He looked directly into the camera. They thought no one would come. Don't let them be right. Morrison out. The transmission ended. The quantum relay sparked and went dark. Its circuits fried from the effort of sending a signal across 47 light years. Lieutenant Torres spoke quietly. Sir, what are our orders? Morrison looked around the command center at his crew. 23 humans against a hegemony battle fleet. In the shelters below, thousands of alien refugees waited to see if their faith in humanity was justified. We dig in and prepare for siege. Check all defensive systems. Distribute weapons to anyone who can use them. And pray that someone back home got our message. Over the next few hours, the colony transformed into a fortress. Human Marines took positions along the defensive walls. The Thurok engineers used their skills to improve the fortifications. Zephyrian scientists worked on ways to boost their shield generators. Malari healers prepared the medical stations for casualties. But everyone kept looking up at the sky, where the hegemony fleet waited like vultures. The ships were close enough now to be visible as moving stars against the alien constellations. As night fell, Morrison stood on the command center balcony. Below him, the colony lights twinkled bravely in the darkness. Families huddled together in the shelters. Children pressed against windows, pointing at the enemy ships above. Dr. Senna approached him, her footsteps silent on the metal deck. Commander, I can feel their emotions. They're afraid, but they still believe in us. Morrison nodded. I just hope their faith isn't misplaced. My people have a saying, Senna said softly. The darkest night comes just before the brightest dawn. Perhaps help will come from an unexpected direction. Morrison wanted to believe her, but the cold mathematics of space travel said otherwise. Earth was too far away. Even if they had received the message, even if they sent help immediately, it would arrive far too late. In the distance, the hegemony ships began moving into bombardment positions. Admiral Krex was not known for patience. The 72-hour deadline might be optimistic. Morrison touched the communication controls one more time, sending out a simple repeating message into the void. This is New Haven Colony. We are still here. We are still fighting. He didn't expect an answer, but somewhere in his heart, he hoped that humanity had not forgotten about its farthest children alone under an alien sky. The impossible journey Earth's defense headquarters buzzed with controlled chaos. Deep beneath the Swiss Alps, the Terran Defense Corps received signals from across human space. Most were routine reports, supply requests, and status updates. But at 0347 hours, something different came through the quantum communication array. Captain Sarah Chen was reviewing fleet deployment reports when her aide burst into her office. Lieutenant Rodriguez looked pale, his hands shaking as he held a data pad. Captain, you need to see this immediately. It's from New Haven Colony. Sarah took the pad and read Morrison's message. Her heart sank with each word. Jake Morrison had been her friend since academy days. She knew his wife Lisa, had been to their daughter's birthday parties, and now he was 47 light years away, facing a hegemony battle fleet with nothing but mining equipment and determination. She ran to the command center where Admiral Williams was studying the message with his senior staff. The old admiral's weathered face showed the weight of an impossible decision. How long would it take our nearest fleet to reach them? Williams asked. 4 months minimum, sir, replied Commander Zhang. Even if we stripped every ship from the outer rim. The hegemony gave them 72 hours, Sarah said. We'll be 4 months too late. Admiral Williams rubbed his temples. Around the command center, officers worked frantically to find solutions that didn't exist. The laws of physics were cruel. Space was too big and conventional travel too slow. What about the prototype ships? Sarah asked suddenly. The room fell silent. Everyone knew about Project Tunnel Vision, the experimental faster-than-light drive system. 3 ships had been built using quantum tunnel technology that could theoretically cross vast distances in days instead of months. But the system was untested at such ranges and impossibly dangerous. Captain Chen, Admiral Williams said carefully, those drives have never been tested beyond 10 light years. The quantum tunnels are unstable. The stress on the ship's hull alone could tear them apart. And the radiation exposure, added Dr. Patel from the science division. The crew would be exposed to quantum flux that could kill them or worse. We don't even know if the navigation systems would work at that distance. Sarah stepped forward. Sir, Jake Morrison and 3,000 refugees are going to die in 72 hours unless we try. The prototype ships are our only chance. Williams looked at her for a long moment. Sarah Chen was one of his best captains, a veteran of 12 years in deep space. If anyone could make the impossible journey, it would be her. The ships can carry skeleton crews only, Williams said. Maybe 60 people per ship. And there's no guarantee you'd survive the trip, let alone arrive in time to help. I volunteer to lead the mission, Sarah said without hesitation. Within 2 hours, 3 prototype ships sat on the launch pads of Luna Base. The TDF Courage, TDF Defiance, and TDF Hope looked different from normal warships. Their hulls were covered in quantum field generators, and their engine sections glowed with barely contained energy. Sarah stood before the volunteers who had answered her call. Pilots, Marines, engineers, and medics, all volunteers who knew they might not survive the journey. Many had families, friends, comfortable lives they were leaving behind, but they also understood what it meant to abandon people who trusted them. Everyone knows the risks, Sarah said. The quantum tunnels might collapse. The radiation might kill us. The ships might not hold together. But 47 light years away, Commander Morrison and 3,000 refugees are counting on us. They believe someone will come. Let's prove them right. The 3 ships launched from Luna Base as Earth turned slowly below them. Sarah sat in the captain's chair of the Courage, watching her homeworld shrink to a blue dot. She thought of Jake Morrison's message. They thought no one would come. All ships prepare for quantum tunnel entry, Sarah commanded. Remember, we'll be making multiple jumps to cover this distance. Stay in tight formation. The universe tore open before them. Reality split like broken glass as the 3 ships entered the quantum tunnel. Sarah felt her body stretched across dimensions as space folded around them. The ship's hull groaned under stresses that shouldn't exist. For endless moments that felt like hours, they traveled through a space between spaces. Stars became lines of light. Time moved strangely. Sarah watched her navigation officer's hands shake as he tried to keep them on course through a realm where up and down had no meaning. Then they burst back into normal space, 20 light years from Earth. The Courage's hull was scarred and smoking. Warning lights flashed across every console. Damage report, Sarah called. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 5. Quantum drive operating at 60% power. We've lost 2 crew members to radiation exposure, reported her first officer. Sarah looked at the tactical display. The Hope was limping beside them, her quantum generators flickering, but the Defiance was gone. The 3rd ship had vanished during the tunnel transition, lost somewhere between dimensions. 27 light years to go, Sarah said quietly. Can we make another jump? Her engineer shook his head. Captain, the quantum matrix is unstable. Another jump this long could destroy us. Then we make shorter jumps, as many as it takes. For the next 18 hours, the 2 remaining ships leaped through space in desperate bounds. Each quantum tunnel brought new damage, new casualties. Sarah watched good people die from radiation poisoning and hull breaches. The ship's medical bays filled with injured crew members, but they kept going. Through quantum storms that shouldn't exist, past cosmic anomalies that tried to tear them apart, the 2 ships pushed toward New Haven Colony. Sarah thought of Jake Morrison and his people, counting down the hours until the hegemony attacked. The final jump brought them within sensor range of the Kepler 442 system. Both ships emerged badly damaged. The Hope's quantum drive was completely dead. The Courage had lost half her weapon systems and most of her shields. Captain, her communications officer said, I'm picking up New Haven's emergency beacon. They're still broadcasting. Sarah felt a moment of relief. They were still alive. But then the tactical display showed what they were facing. 47 hegemony warships surrounded the colony world like wolves around wounded prey. 2 damaged ships against a battle fleet, her first officer said. Ma'am, we don't have enough firepower to scratch their paint. Sarah looked at the display showing New Haven Colony's small lights against the darkness of space. Somewhere down there, Jake Morrison was preparing for a hopeless last stand. 3,000 refugees waited to see if their faith in humanity was justified. Signal the Hope, Sarah said. Tell Captain Martinez to prepare for combat. and send a message to the colony. What should I tell them, Captain? Sarah smiled for the first time in days. Tell them Earth's champions have arrived. The two battered ships moved toward the hegemony fleet. They were outnumbered 20-1. Their hulls were cracked, their weapons damaged, their crews exhausted from the impossible journey. Any reasonable person would surrender, but these were humans who had crossed 47 light-years in 2 days. They had lost friends to quantum storms and radiation. They had torn holes in space itself to be here. They had not come this far to give up. As the two ships approached the enemy fleet, Sarah thought of Morrison's words. They thought no one would come. She opened a channel to the hegemony ships. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Corps. You are attacking a human colony and threatening innocent refugees. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The response came quickly. Admiral Krex's reptilian face appeared on the screen, his yellow eyes filled with amusement. 2 small ships against my entire fleet? Human, you are either very brave or very stupid. Sarah's smile was cold as winter. Admiral, you're about to find out there's no difference. She closed the channel and turned to her crew. These people had volunteered for an impossible mission. They had survived a journey that should have killed them. Now they faced odds that would terrify any sane person. But sanity was overrated when friends needed help. All hands, prepare for combat. Let's show these aliens what humans do when someone threatens our family. The 2 damaged ships accelerated toward the enemy fleet. Behind them, the quantum tunnel drives flickered and died, their power finally exhausted. There would be no retreat, no escape. They would win here or die trying. In the distance, New Haven Colony's lights twinkled like stars against the darkness. Jake Morrison and his people were still broadcasting their defiant message. We are still here. We are still fighting. Soon they would learn they were not fighting alone. David and Goliath, Admiral Krex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Fist, watching 2 tiny human ships approach his massive fleet. Each of his dreadnoughts was 10 times larger than the approaching vessels. His fighters alone outnumbered the humans 100-1. Shall we destroy them quickly, Admiral? Asked his tactical officer. Krex bared his teeth in what might have been a smile. No, let them come closer. I want them to see the futility of their gesture before they die. Perhaps watching their champions burn will break the colonists' spirit. On New Haven Colony, Commander Morrison stared at his communication display in disbelief. The impossible had happened. 2 ships bearing Terran Defense Corps signatures had appeared in the system. But his relief quickly turned to horror as he saw what they faced. Sir, Lieutenant Torres said quietly, those ships are heavily damaged. And there are only 2 of them. Morrison nodded grimly. Someone had heard their call for help. Someone had come. But 2 ships against the entire hegemony battle fleet was still suicide. He opened a channel to the approaching vessels. TDF ships, this is Morrison. Thank you for coming, but you need to retreat. This is a full battle fleet. You can't win this fight. Sarah Chen's voice came back immediately, clear and determined. Jake, this is Sarah. Remember the Academy motto? Morrison smiled despite everything. No one left behind. That's right. We didn't come this far to run away. Keep your people safe and let us handle the fleet. The channel closed. Morrison looked out at the hegemony ships surrounding his world. 2 human vessels against 47 enemy warships. It was madness, but somehow he believed they had a chance. Captain Chen studied her tactical display. The hegemony ships were arranged in a standard siege formation around the planet. Powerful but predictable, she opened a channel to Captain Martinez on the Hope. Carlos, remember the Titan War simulations? Formation Delta 7? Martinez's voice crackled through the damaged communication system. Hit-and-run tactics. Use our speed advantage. But Sarah, these aren't simulations. Then we better make every shot count. Begin attack pattern in 30 seconds. The 2 human ships suddenly accelerated, diving toward the hegemony fleet like hawks attacking eagles. Sarah watched the enemy vessels scramble to respond. The hegemony was used to facing enemies who fought in rigid formations, following predictable patterns. Humans had never been predictable. The Courage rolled beneath a dreadnought's firing arc and launched a spread of quantum mines. The experimental weapons phased through the enemy's shields and attached to the hull before exploding. The massive ship shuddered as holes appeared in its armor. Meanwhile, the Hope deployed a cloud of nanobotic swarms. The microscopic robots swarmed over 3 hegemony cruisers, eating through their electronic systems. The ships went dark as their computers failed. Impossible, Krex roared. How are they penetrating our shields? His science officer checked his instruments frantically. Admiral, they're using weapons we've never seen before. Some kind of phase technology and molecular disruptors. Sarah grinned as the Courage weaved between enemy fire. The prototype weapons were working better than expected. But they had limited ammunition, and the hegemony had started adapting their tactics. All fighters, engage the human ships, Krex commanded. A swarm of hegemony fighters descended on the two human vessels like angry hornets. Sarah watched hundreds of small craft surround her ship. Each fighter was faster and more maneuverable than her damaged cruiser, but the pilots weren't human. Activate neural interfaces, Sarah ordered. All pilots to combat enhancement mode. Around her, the human crew plugged neural links into their command stations. Their consciousness expanded to merge with the ship's computer systems. Reaction times increased tenfold. Pattern recognition became superhuman. The Courage suddenly moved like a living thing, dancing between enemy fighters with impossible grace. Its point defense weapons tracked and destroyed incoming missiles with perfect accuracy. When 3 fighters tried to box it in, the ship spun on its axis and fired in 3 directions simultaneously. The Hope performed similar miracles, its human crew operating beyond normal biological limits. Captain Martinez linked directly with his navigation system, plotting courses that seemed to defy physics while his gunners picked off fighters with mechanical precision. What are they? Whispered a hegemony pilot before his fighter exploded. The answer was simple. They were humans fighting for their friends. On the colony below, the alien refugees watched the battle in amazement. Sarah pressed her crystalline face against the shelter window, refracting the light of explosions above. Look how they move, she whispered to her companions. Like dancers in a deadly ballet, Thek clicked his mandibles in appreciation. Adaptive tactics. They're not following any pattern we've seen before. Each maneuver is unique, creative. Dr. Senna closed her eyes and reached out with her empathic abilities. Even from the surface, she could feel the emotions of the human crews above. No fear, only determination. No doubt, only absolute commitment to protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. They're not just fighting, she said softly. They're expressing their love for us through combat. The battle raged for hours. The 2 human ships seemed to be everywhere at once, striking and vanishing like ghosts. They used the planet's gravity well to slingshot around enemy formations. They hid in sensor shadows and struck from unexpected angles, but they were taking damage. The Hope's engines were failing. The Courage had lost 2 weapon batteries, and the hegemony was learning to counter their tactics. Admiral, Krex's tactical officer reported, we've lost 18 fighters and 3 cruisers. The humans are using the planet's magnetic field to disrupt our targeting systems, Krex snarled. These humans fought unlike any enemy he had faced. They used everything around them as a weapon. Gravity, magnetism, even the planet's atmosphere. Every rule of space combat they threw away and replaced with pure creativity. But they were only 2 ships. Eventually, numbers would tell. All vessels converge on the human ships. Focus all fire on the larger one. The hegemony fleet began closing in like a trap. Sarah saw the tactical situation deteriorating rapidly. They had hurt the enemy, but not enough. Soon the fleet would pin them down and destroy them. That's when the planet below began to help. The Zephyrians had been studying the battle carefully. Their crystalline bodies could refract and redirect energy. Working together, they created a network of light amplifiers across the colony's surface. When the hegemony ships fired their energy weapons at the human vessels, the Zephyrians caught the stray beams and reflected them back at the attackers. Laser fire meant to kill humans instead struck hegemony ships from impossible angles. The Thurok engineers had been busy too. Their 6-armed efficiency allowed them to modify the colony's mining equipment in record time. Ore extractors became mass drivers. Processing plants became shield generators. The entire settlement transformed into a fortress that could support the human ships. Dr. Senna and the other Malari focused their empathic abilities upward. They couldn't heal the ships directly, but they could share strength and determination with the human crews. Pain became manageable. Exhaustion faded. The link between the surface and the sky grew stronger. Captain, Sarah's communication officer called out, the colonists are helping. They're redirecting enemy fire and boosting our system somehow. Sarah smiled. This was what made humans different from the hegemony. Humans fought for others and others fought for them in return. It was a lesson the galaxy was about to learn. All ships, she broadcast to both her vessel and Martinez's, the colonists have our backs. Time to show the hegemony what cooperation looks like. The two human ships dove toward the planet's surface, using the atmosphere itself as cover. The hegemony followed, but found themselves flying into a carefully prepared trap. Mining charges detonated in sequence, creating debris fields that damaged pursuing ships. Redirected energy beams struck them from the ground. And through it all, the two human vessels weaved between the obstacles like they belonged there. Admiral Krex watched his tactical display with growing fury. His overwhelming numerical advantage was being negated by tactics he couldn't understand. The humans fought with a flexibility and creativity that made his rigid military doctrine useless. Enough, he roared. All ships prepare for orbital bombardment. We'll burn the entire planet and be done with this. But as his ships moved into bombardment formation, new contacts appeared on the edge of the system. The quantum tunnel drives had finally recharged and reinforcements were arriving. Except they weren't human reinforcements. Ships of a dozen different species dropped out of hyperspace. The message of New Haven's defense had spread through quantum communication networks across the galaxy. Other worlds that had been helped by humans were coming to return the favor. The real battle was about to begin. The turning point Admiral Krex stared at his tactical display in disbelief. 23 new ships had appeared at the edge of the system, but they weren't human vessels. These were Arcturn trading ships, Vespid colony vessels, and Keth exploration craft, species scattered across the galaxy who had one thing in common. They had all been helped by humans at some point. Admiral, his communication officer reported, the new arrivals are broadcasting on all frequencies. They're demanding we withdraw from human space. Impossible, Krex snarled. These species have no military alliance. They've never worked together before. But on the bridge of an Arcturn freighter, Captain Veltar was proving him wrong. The eight-armed trader had converted his cargo ship into a makeshift weapons platform after hearing about the attack on New Haven. His species owed their lives to human marines who had driven off slavers from their homeworld. All vessels, Veltar broadcast in accented standard. The humans came for us when no one else would. Now we come for them. Attack Formation Beta, protect the colony. The improvised fleet moved toward the hegemony forces. They were traders, explorers, and refugees, not soldiers. Their ships were cargo haulers and scientific vessels hastily fitted with whatever weapons they could find. But they came anyway because humans had taught them that sometimes standing up to bullies was more important than being safe. Sarah Chen watched the ragtag fleet approach and felt tears in her eyes. These people had dropped everything and traveled across space to help humans they had never met. The message of New Haven was spreading, that some species would risk everything to protect others. All ships, she broadcast to the growing alliance. This is Captain Chen of the TDF Courage. Thank you for coming. Let's coordinate our attack. But Admiral Krex wasn't about to be defeated by a collection of cargo ships and civilian vessels. He activated his flagship's long-range communication system and sent a priority signal toward hegemony space. This is Admiral Krex requesting immediate reinforcements. The humans have gathered alien allies. I need a full battle fleet to complete this operation. The response came back faster than expected. Reinforcements en route. ETA 30 minutes. The hegemony does not tolerate defiance. Sarah's communication officer intercepted the message. Captain, they're calling for backup. We have maybe half an hour before more hegemony ships arrive. Sarah looked at her tactical display. Even with the alien reinforcements, they were still outnumbered. And when the second hegemony fleet arrived, they would be completely overwhelmed. She made a decision that would haunt her dreams forever. Martinez, she called to the Hope on a secure channel. I need you to do something for me. What do you need, Sarah? Take your ship and evacuate as many colonists as possible. Get them to safety. Sarah, what are you planning? She looked at the quantum drive readings on her console. The Courage's tunnel drive was damaged but still functional. If she overloaded it at exactly the right moment, I'm going to ram Krex's flagship. The quantum drive explosion should take out most of his command structure. Silence filled the communication channel. Then Martinez's voice came back, quiet but firm. Sarah, that's suicide. The quantum feedback will tear your ship apart. It's the only way to even the odds before their reinforcements arrive. Someone has to make the hard choice. On New Haven's surface, Commander Morrison was coordinating the evacuation of the most vulnerable refugees. The elderly, the injured, and the youngest would go first. But as he watched the Hope descend toward the landing pads, he realized what Captain Chen was planning. "No," he whispered. "Sarah, don't do this." But in the depths of space, Sarah Chen had already made her choice. She looked around the bridge at her crew, good people who had volunteered for an impossible mission. They deserved to know what she was asking of them. "All hands, this is the captain," she announced over the ship's communication system. "I'm about to order a ramming attack on the enemy flagship. Anyone who wants to can evacuate to the escape pods now. No one will think less of you." She waited for the rush to the escape pods. Instead, her first officer turned in his chair and smiled at her. "Captain, with respect, we didn't come 47 light years just to abandon you at the finish line. If we're doing this, we're doing it together." One by one, the crew voiced their agreement. The navigation officer who had guided them through quantum storms. The engineering chief who had held the ship together with determination and prayer. The Marine commander who had lost friends in the impossible journey. They were all staying. Sarah felt her throat tighten with emotion. "Thank you," she said simply. "It's been an honor serving with you." The Courage turned toward Admiral Crex's massive flagship. The Dominion's fist was 3 kilometers of armored death, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. But it had one weakness. The humans were too close for its main guns to track them. "All power to forward shields and engines," Sarah ordered. "Override all safety protocols on the quantum drive. We're going to make this count." The ship accelerated toward the Hegemony flagship like a meteor. Around them, the Allied fleet and the remaining Hegemony ships exchanged fire. Explosions lit up space as cargo haulers fought cruisers and exploration vessels dueled destroyers. On his bridge, Admiral Crex finally realized what the humans were planning. "Evasive maneuvers. All weapons focus on the approaching ship." The Dominion's fist tried to turn away, but it was too massive to escape quickly. Energy beams lashed out at the Courage, stripping away armor and hull plating. Sarah felt her ship dying around her, but they were almost there. "Quantum drive at critical levels," reported her engineer. "The containment field is failing." "Hold it together for 30 more seconds," Sarah ordered. "That's all I need." The Courage struck the Dominion's fist at ramming speed. The smaller ship's reinforced hull pierced the flagship's armor like a spear. For a moment, the two vessels were locked together in a deadly embrace. Then the quantum drive exploded. Reality shattered around both ships. The explosion tore a hole in space-time itself, creating a miniature black hole that lasted for microseconds before collapsing. The Dominion's fist simply ceased to exist. Its matter scattered across multiple dimensions. The Courage vanished too, taking Sarah Chen and her brave crew with her. The quantum storm that followed disabled a dozen Hegemony ships and sent others spinning out of control. The enemy fleet's command structure was gone. Their most powerful vessel destroyed, their admiral dead. On New Haven Colony, the refugees felt the ground shake as gravitational waves from the explosion reached the planet's surface. In the emergency shelters, Zephyrian crystals sang with harmonics from the quantum disruption. Thurok engineers watched their instruments register energy readings that shouldn't exist. Dr. Senna placed her hands over her heart and sent a prayer into space for the humans who had given their lives. She could feel the echo of their sacrifice even from the planet's surface. Absolute determination to protect others, even at the cost of everything. Commander Morrison stood on the observation deck and watched the expanding cloud of debris where 2 mighty ships had died. Sarah Chen had been his friend, his classmate, someone who chose to throw her life away so others could live. "Sir," Lieutenant Torres called softly, "the Hope is requesting permission to land. They're ready to begin evacuations." Morrison nodded but didn't look away from the debris field. "Give them clearance." "And Torres?" "Sir, make sure our people know what Captain Chen did here. Make sure they understand the price she paid." But the battle wasn't over. The quantum explosion had crippled the Hegemony fleet, but it hadn't destroyed them all. And in 30 minutes, reinforcements would arrive to finish what Admiral Crex had started. The Allied fleet regrouped around New Haven Colony, their mixed vessels forming a protective screen around the world. They had won the first round, but the real test was still coming. In the twisted wreckage floating where the Dominion's fist had died, something moved. A single escape pod had somehow survived the quantum explosion, its occupant badly injured but alive. Admiral Krex pulled himself upright in the cramped pod and stared out at the human colony that had cost him his fleet and his flagship. His yellow eyes burned with hatred and humiliation. The humans had made him look weak in front of the galaxy. He activated the pod's emergency transmitter and sent a message to the approaching reinforcement fleet. "This is Admiral Krex. New orders: when you arrive, destroy everything. No survivors. No prisoners. Burn the planet to ash." The tide had turned, but the real storm was still approaching. And now it would be a storm of vengeance, not conquest. On the surface of New Haven Colony, 3 species worked together to prepare for the final battle. They had seen what humans would sacrifice to protect them. Now it was time to show what they would sacrifice to protect their human friends. Champions of the galaxy. The reinforcement fleet emerged from hyperspace like a wall of death. 68 hegemony warships, their hulls black as space itself, arranged themselves in perfect formation. Admiral Torex commanded this force from his dreadnought, the Iron Throne. He had received Krex's final transmission and understood his orders perfectly. Complete annihilation. Captain Martinez stood on the bridge of the Hope, now the senior human officer in the system. Around him, the Allied fleet waited in desperate formation. 23 ships crewed by traitors, scientists, and refugees who had never expected to fight a war. But they had come when humanity called, and now they would stand together until the end. "All ships," Martinez broadcast. "The second wave is here. We're outnumbered 3-1, but we have something they don't. We're fighting for each other." On New Haven Colony, the evacuation was proceeding as fast as possible. The Hope's shuttles worked alongside alien transport vessels to ferry refugees to safety. But with 60,000 people on the surface and limited ship space, most would have to remain behind. Commander Morrison coordinated the evacuation from the colony's command center. He made the hardest decisions of his life, choosing who would live and who would stay. Priority went to children, then the elderly and injured, but thousands of healthy adults volunteered to remain behind so others could escape. Among them were Zara, Thek, and Dr. Senna. The 3 alien friends had become symbols of cooperation on New Haven. When Morrison offered them places on the evacuation ships, they refused. "This is our home too," Zara said, her crystalline body refracting the emergency lights into rainbow patterns. "If it falls, we fall with it." Thek clicked his mandibles in agreement. "My people build things to last. We will help defend what we have built here." Dr. Senna placed her healing hands on Morrison's shoulders. "Commander, I can feel the emotions of everyone on this world. Human, Zephyrian, Thurok, Malari, we are all afraid. But we are also united. That unity is stronger than any weapon." Morrison looked out at his colony one last time. In a few hours, this peaceful settlement might be nothing but radioactive ash. But it had become something more important than buildings and mining equipment. It had become proof that different species could live together, work together, and die together. In space above, the battle began. Admiral Torex opened with a massive barrage from his entire fleet. Energy beams and missile volleys filled the darkness between the stars. The Allied ships scattered like leaves in a hurricane, using their smaller size and superior maneuverability to avoid the worst of the attack. Captain Martinez pushed the Hope to her limits, diving beneath a hegemony cruiser and launching his remaining quantum mines. The weapons phased through the enemy shields and tore holes in their hull. But one ship against 68 was hopeless odds, even with alien allies. The Arcturn freighter Prophet's Edge exploded under concentrated fire, her captain's last words a defiant curse in his native language. A Vespid science vessel tried to ram a hegemony destroyer, but was cut apart by point defense systems before it could strike. One by one, the Allied ships were dying, and when they were gone, nothing would stand between the hegemony fleet and the planet below. That's when the planet itself joined the fight. The Thurok had spent the last few hours converting every piece of mining equipment into weapons. Ore extractors became mass drivers that launched chunks of metal at near light speed. Processing plants became energy projectors that could reach into orbit. The entire industrial complex of New Haven Colony became a fortress, but it was the other species who turned the tide. The Zephyrians had discovered something during the first battle. Their crystalline bodies could do more than reflect light. They could store and redirect quantum energy. Working together in perfect synchronization, every Zephyrian on the planet became part of a massive focusing array. When the hegemony ships fired their energy weapons at the surface, the Zephyrians caught the beams and combined them. Thousands of individual laser strikes became one coherent weapon of unimaginable power. The redirected beam lanced up from the planet's surface and cut a hegemony battleship in half. The Malari contributed their empathic abilities on a scale never attempted before. Dr. Senna led her people in a mental network that reached out to touch every mind in the battle. They couldn't control the enemy, but they could share strength and coordination among their allies. Suddenly, the Allied fleet moved like one organism. Ships that had never fought together before anticipated each other's moves perfectly. Human tactics merged with alien technologies in ways that created new possibilities. The Thurok used their engineering skills to modify human weapons in real time. A mining laser became a particle beam. A cargo containment field became a shield generator. Every piece of technology on the planet was transformed into something new. Admiral Torex watched his tactical display with growing alarm. The planet below was fighting back with weapons that shouldn't exist. Ships that should have been destroyed were still operational, supported by some kind of planetary defense network, and worst of all, his enemies were coordinating their attacks with impossible precision. "How are they doing this?" he demanded of his science officer. "Admiral, the alien species are working together in ways we've never seen. They're sharing their abilities somehow. The entire planet has become a single weapon system," Torex snarled. The hegemony had conquered 100 worlds by dividing their enemies, making them fight each other instead of working together. But these species were united by something stronger than fear. They were united by gratitude to the humans who had protected them. The battle raged for hours. Hegemony ships fell to impossible combinations of alien technologies. A Vespid ship used its biological hull to absorb energy weapons, then transferred the power to an Arcturn vessel that redirected it back at the enemy. Keth exploration craft used their advanced sensors to guide human missiles through enemy defenses. But the Allies were still losing. Despite their cooperation and creativity, they were simply outnumbered. The hegemony had the ships and firepower to overwhelm any defense through sheer attrition. That's when Captain Martinez made the same choice Sarah Chen had made hours earlier. "All ships," he broadcast. "I'm taking the Hope on a final attack run. Get the evacuation ships clear of the system." "Carlos, no!" Morrison's voice came from the planet's surface. "We've lost too many good people already. Jake, someone has to make the hard choice. And I'd rather die fighting than watch this colony burn." The Hope accelerated toward Admiral Torex's flagship, the Iron Throne. Around her, the surviving Allied ships formed up as escorts. They would make this last attack together, whatever the cost. But as they approached the massive hegemony dreadnought, something unexpected happened. Admiral Torex's ship began to turn away. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported in confusion, "new contacts are emerging from hyperspace. Multiple signatures." On the tactical display, ship after ship appeared at the edge of the system. But these weren't hegemony reinforcements. These were human vessels, a full battle fleet led by Admiral Williams himself aboard the TDF Enterprise. The impossible journey had taken too long for them to arrive in time to save the colony. But Captain Chen's sacrifice and the Allied resistance had bought precious hours. The reinforcement fleet had pushed their quantum drives beyond all safety limits to reach New Haven before it fell. "All hegemony vessels," Admiral Williams broadcast, his voice carrying the weight of Earth's authority, "you are in violation of the Terran Protection Accords. Withdraw immediately or face the full response of the Terran Defense Corps." Admiral Torex found himself caught between two forces. Behind him, a human battle fleet with advanced technology and experienced crews. In front of him, a planet defended by species working together in ways that defied military doctrine. For the first time in hegemony history, a fleet commander decided to retreat, rather than face the consequences of attacking humans and their allies. "All ships," Torex ordered reluctantly, "withdraw to minimum safe distance. We will reassess our position." But the retreat was not fast enough for one person. In his damaged escape pod, Admiral Krex watched the hegemony fleet pull back just as victory seemed within reach. Rage and humiliation consumed him. The humans had cost him everything: his ship, his fleet, his reputation. If he could not have victory, he would have revenge. Krex activated his pod's self-destruct system and set course for New Haven Colony. The small craft accelerated toward the planet's surface, carrying enough antimatter to level the main settlement. At least he could kill the human commander who had defied him. On the surface, Morrison watched the pod's approach on his sensors. He had minutes to evacuate the command center, but thousands of refugees were still in the shelters below. There wasn't time to save everyone. He activated the colony's emergency communication system one final time. "This is Commander Morrison to all personnel. Incoming impact in 3 minutes. All hands to emergency positions," but he didn't run. Instead, he stayed at his post, coordinating the final evacuations and making sure the colony's defensive systems were ready to protect as many people as possible. If this was the end, he would meet it doing his duty. The escape pod streaked through New Haven's atmosphere like a falling star,